to order for Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021. Can we roll the tape, please?
Due to COVID-19, this meeting will be conducted as a Zoom meeting pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order N-2920, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act. This meeting is being live-streamed on the CCTA website. The Chair will call upon members, staff, and other speakers by name. Please speak clearly and state your name before giving comments or remarks. Persons participating via Zoom with their cameras enabled are reminded that their activities are visible to viewers. Members participating by Zoom wishing to speak should physically raise their hand and unmute their mic when called upon. Members should remute their mics when done speaking. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the Raise Hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the Chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. A 30-second warning will be provided. After 3 minutes, staff will lower their hand and mute their mic. Participants via phone will be called upon by the last 4 digits of their phone number. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Written public comments received in accordance with the COVID-19 Special Notice for Public Comment Guidelines are printed on the meeting agenda. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand and the Chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. A roll call vote will be taken for all action items. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Well, hello there. And I just pulled up the wrong agenda. So, because I'm not Tom Butt, that's tomorrow morning. Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Haskew?
Here.
Commissioner Hudson?
Here.
Commissioner Kelly?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Here.
Chair Mitchoff?
I'm here also. Thank you very much. So with that, I would like to now call upon if there are any members of the public who wish to address us under any item not on tonight's agenda. There will be an opportunity to speak under public comment on agendized item. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone with their hands raised or indicating they wish to make a public comment?
Not that I see, and we have not received any written public comment.
Great, thank you very much. Next is item 3, which is the consent calendar. Is there anyone who wishes to ask an item to be taken off the consent calendar for further discussion? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
Moved. Approved.
It looks like Commissioner Haskew moved and Commissioner Hudson seconded. Anyone in the audience and the public who wishes to comment on any item on our consent calendar? And I'm assuming from Ms. Ray's look that there are none. So may we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Hudson?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Vice Chair Haskew?
Yes.
Chair Mitchoff?
Yes, thank you very much. Moving
Motion
on.
passes unanimously. Thanks.
Thank you for saying that. I am going too fast here. All right, we're going to move on. We have 2 items on our agenda. Item A is approval of updates to the Measure J Growth Management Program. I'm not seeing who's making this presentation, but again, we've all read the report. So does staff want to give us a brief synopsis for the members who are listening in? Staff seeks authority, approval, and adoption of the proposed updates to the Measure J Growth Management Plan Implementation Guide. Is that you, Mr. Kelly, or who is that?
It is. Thank you, Chair Mitchoff and Planning Committee members. I'm Matt Kelly, Senior Transportation Planner with the Authority, here tonight with David Early of PlaceWorks, our on-call transportation planning consultant with the Authority. And we plan on giving you a summary version of the presentation tonight. We know you've all seen this at the RTPCs, and we are taking it to the authority in 2 weeks. So if you'd like to postpone it till the authority, we're open to that, but otherwise we'll give you a brief summary of the topic.
Why don't we do a brief summary? Because maybe some folks were not able to attend the RTPC when it
Great.
came out.
Great. So really, we're here to summarize the proposed updates to the GMP implementation guide as directed by the board in order to implement the changes from level of service to vehicle miles traveled as changed state law that affected CEQA under SB 743. So back in July of last year, you all as the authority board approved that shift in the growth management program. And since then, staff, along with our GMP task force members and our consultants, have been working to reflect those changes in the guide. And the guide is really what our local staffs use as guidance for remaining compliant with the growth management program. And as you know, that's how you all receive your Measure J return to source funding. So it's important that we put out good guidance, and I'm going to turn it over to David to walk you through those proposed changes. Let me get presentation up. And David.
Good evening. I'm David Early, and as Matt mentioned, I'm your on-call consultant with PlaceWorks regarding planning issues. I'm going to go through this as quickly as possible. I know many of you have seen it, and you'll see that we've limited the number of slides, but I'm going to even go through those slides more quickly. I'm going to just talk with you about the 6 new items in the implementation guide, and then we'll turn it back to you for any questions you may have. Let's go to the next slide already. So the changes that we've made are really in 2 parts. There are a total of 6 items that we're now asking that you cover in each of your action plans for each of the RTPCs. And 3 of those 6 are what we call modal topics. I think you're all familiar with the fact that you have been previously always looking at a regional roadway network. That's one of the 3 modes. The other 2 modes are bikes and pedestrians and transit. And we're going to ask you in your action plans now to look not only at roadways, but also bike ped network and transit network, to designate and map routes of regional significance for each of those 3 modes, to coordinate with the RTPCs adjacent to you regarding any routes that are crossing over sub-area boundaries, and then for you yourselves as RTPCs to establish goals, set RTOs, and develop the supportive actions for them. Next slide. On the non-modal topics, again, there are 3 of those. These are non-modal topics as they relate to transportation, and they are transportation equity, transportation safety, and climate change as affected by transportation methods. And in each of the RTPC action plans, you will now be setting goals and actions for each of those. These will not be specific to individual facilities, such as a particular roadway or bikeway, but instead they'll be sub-region wide or place specific, for instance, saying that in our sub-region, we seek the following penetration for electric vehicle charging, or we seek that this specific number of low-income people would have good access to transit, those kinds of things, but for the sub-region or a place overall. So again, you have the 3 modal topics, the 3 non-modal topics, and what we're asking you tonight is to give preliminary approval to this new set of guidelines in the implementation guide that explain how to do those in an action plan. So if we can have the next slide. This just shows how we're going to be changing the action plan process, and particularly we've clarified the interactive consultation process among the RTPCs for shared facilities. Those are what's circled in the red. And then if we can have the next slide. We have also made changes to the transportation impact evaluation process with clarifications regarding both projects for requirements for major projects, as well as requirements for general plan amendments. Next slide. We have also spent some time talking with you all before, and I'd be happy to answer questions about changes to level of service analysis. You've actually already seen those in a previous meeting about 9 months ago. But the action plans do have a bearing there, since the action plans are going to continue to look at capacity, even though you're looking at VMT now in your CEQA documents. And we can talk more about how those 2 things interact if you have any questions there. Next slide. In summary, let's just point out that right now we're asking you to finish up this approval of the implementation guide. We anticipate that happening this month, and that's the second bullet here. And Matt and John and I just wanted to also let you know that we are now, once this is done over this month, we're going to begin the update of the technical procedures, including VMT analysis methodology. We're going to be working on a VMT mitigation program under the Caltrans grant that you've received. And in the summer of this year, we do anticipate beginning action plan updates by the RTPCs. And I believe that's the end of the presentation, and we'll turn it back to the chair for any questions there may be.
And
Thank you.
Chair Mitchoff, I did want to thank the GMP task force members who really represented all the jurisdictions in getting us to this point and providing lots of thoughtful feedback. We do have at least one member in the room, so I'd like to thank them. But that's our recommendation is approval of the changes to the implementation guide under resolution 2110G.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you both, Mr. Kelly and Mr. Early. Can you unshare your screen so I can see all my peeps? Do we have any questions or comments on the staff recommendation? Seeing none, do we have any public comment, Ms. Reyes?
No public comment.
All righty. Who would like to?
I did.
Okay, I had a feeling Mr. Hudson would like to.
No, I did. I was talking over you again.
Well, perhaps Mr. White would like to second it?
That would be fine with me.
Oh, all right. I'm sorry. I didn't hear you, Llewellyn.
2010G, I think you said.
Mr. White, are you happy to second it?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Hudson,
Aye.
Commissioner White,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Vice Chair Haskew,
Aye.
and Chair Mitchoff.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you all.
motion passes unanimously.
Wonderful. Item 4B is to request the authority board approval of the draft final Contra Costa Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan and to submit the final report to the California Department of Transportation. We have a recommendation here, and I'm switching between screens. Who is going to be giving this presentation?
I will, Madam Chair. Peter.
Hi, Peter. Thank you. Mr. Engel, go ahead, please.
Okay, let me share my screen here. I think this is the right one. I just need to pull up the presentation. Can everybody see that? I'm trying to get it into the right mode here. Everybody see that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Similar to Matt's presentation previously, I, with your permission, will go through this fairly rapidly. This will be the same presentation that will be provided to the board in 2 weeks. At that time, we will have Nelson Nygaard here to present the item to the board with a lot more detail, but staff is taking on the duty tonight to save a few bucks.
Thank you. We love that.
So this is the Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan. Basically, accessible transportation is transportation programs that provide services to seniors, people with disabilities, and eligible veterans in the county. The plan was taken on, or the study was taken on, as a partnership between CCTA and Contra Costa County, and it was funded by a Caltrans Sustainable Communities grant. And it did come up with some recommendations that I will get into at the end of the program. I will skip over this. Basically, the background is just the idea of this ATSP has been brought up on several different occasions in planning that's been done by the authority. There was 2 oversight committees that gave us guidance on this, a technical advisory committee that is staff from the jurisdictions and the transit operators, and a policy advisory committee. CCTA was represented on that by Mr. Hudson and Chair Geringer, as well as Representative Deborah Allen from BART represented BART. So we did have good authority representation on the Policy Advisory Committee. I want to thank everybody during this very difficult time with COVID. Staff realized and the Policy Committee realized was a very important project, and they were very dedicated, even though they had a lot of other things going on around them. We can get into this. There was past studies that were done. A lot of those, a lot of the recommendations in those studies were never implemented. So we took a close look at why that was, and we took a close look at the barriers to coordination of these services from a national level and within our own Bay Area and within our own county. It's very difficult to coordinate these services based on how they've kind of organically grown from the start. So we looked at those barriers. Here's a map showing what's available currently in the county. The color blotches are the transit operators and their service areas. The blue dots are community-based transportation programs. You can see that both WestCat up in the upper left corner and Tri-Delta Transit, the yellow blotch there, they don't have very many community-based, if any, community-based transportation programs. So they carry a heavy load as the public transit operator in their subregions. And this is a map that shows basically the major medical facilities in the county. And you can see there are quite a few in East County. This was an interesting concept. We promised Caltrans, who funded this, that we would do significant public outreach and we would do it in a different way. Our initial plan was to work with community-based organizations to have them kind of help us with the outreach to get deeper into the communities than we typically do by just having a public meeting or a workshop of some kind. We got one meeting out of the way, and we also met with the Pleasant Hill Commission on Aging, and then March hit and COVID-19 and shelter in place. So we threw all that planning out the window, and we pivoted, and we came up with what turned out to be a very successful outreach campaign and effort. We did a survey in 3 languages. We posted that electronically on a project-specific website that was created. We also provided it in paper copies in English, Spanish, and Mandarin. We received over 1,000 responses in all 3 languages. We did some unique things to get that survey out. We took advantage of everybody pitching in with delivering meals to people during COVID, and we provided flyers and surveys with those meals. A lot of the community-based organizations reached out to their clients and provided them information on the study, and went through and filled out the survey over the phone. And they took phone calls from their clients to help them fill out the survey. So we thank them for the work on that. That really helped. We had 5 focus groups. One was in Spanish in West County. One was with college students. And then in a few of the other, there's more details in the report, obviously, on the 5 focus groups. We had stakeholder interviews with 11 stakeholders, including the transit operators and a lot of the community-based organizations and nonprofits that are providing services and giving services to seniors and people with disabilities. We had a telephone town hall meeting on October 27th. You can see the detailed statistics of that. It went very well. We partnered with all of you and your websites. We had links on your websites, as well as provided other information through your websites. And then we use social media extensively. Obviously, not a lot of seniors use social media, but their kids do and their grandkids do. And they're the ones that are given their parents and grandparents transportation services right now. So they are definitely stakeholders in this study. All of the outreach came through with a series of transportation needs and gaps that were identified. These are just some of them. I'll go through these quickly. These, again, are all in your report. And there was a significant amount of information that was provided to us through the outreach that allowed Nelson Nygaard to come up with these needs. So let's get to the recommendations. So the main recommendation that came out of the study was that we needed to have a permanent coordinating structure. One of the things that's been missing in the county over the years is one entity that could really coordinate all of the different services that are out there and make sure that everybody's working together instead of within their own silos. So in order to get to that point where we had a permanent coordinating structure, there's multiple ways that entity can be put together. It can be a nonprofit, it can be a government agency, it can be a JPA, it can be one of the transit operators. It can be any myriad of different existing or yet to exist organizations. So in order to establish the appropriate and vet those different opportunities, we thought putting together a task force would be the best way to go. And this would allow us to immediately continue the momentum from the study, get a task force in place. The task force is proposed to have a similar makeup of the Policy Advisory Committee. So transit operators, social service agencies, county health department, the emergency operations center. These different agencies and different perspectives are very important to the clients, to seniors, people with disabilities, and their transportation needs. So the proposal is that a task force be developed sooner rather than later. And then that task force has kind of 3 tasks. And one is to continue working towards and put together the permanent coordinated entity, to identify funding, and to take on some of the low-hanging fruit of the mobility strategies that are also recommended from the study and start to implement those right away, and then kind of leave the more long-term ones to the permanent entity once it gets functioning. So this is a little bit more about that structure. Again, I had mentioned it could be a nonprofit, it could be a public agency, it could be a new agency. I won't get into the CTSA. I think it's explained fairly well in the study. It's a designation that this agency could have, but it could also be, you can have a coordinating entity without the CTSA designation. And then again, the missions of the coordinated entity would be to pursue new funding sources. I think it was clear in the study that the majority of the strategies that are being recommended would require new funding to administer a uniform countywide ADA paratransit eligibility certification. Right now, all of the ADA operators have their own certification process. They all meet the requirements of the ADA, but everyone is a little bit different. And it would be easier for the public if there was one process for everybody to use. Expanded mobility management, potentially procure a joint procurement of scheduling software so that all of the operators use the same scheduling software. It would just be easier again for the public to use the system and to onboard into the system. A few other things: present a unified voice for local, state, and federal funds. Oversee the one-seat ride opportunities that are the pilot that's currently just been started, and see how that continues to move forward. And then consider additional opportunities that may come up as time goes on. We are seeing right now a very interesting time for transit in the Bay Area as a whole, where regionally there's a lot of eyes on the individual transit operators through a blue ribbon task force that was put together by MTC. And it could have a lot of impacts on our local public transit service, which would also then, of course, have impacts on our local ADA and other paratransit services. So these things happen from time to time, funding changes from time to time, and a coordinated entity could be sure and be on top of these things and take care of them as they go through. I won't go through all these. These are provided in the study. The last chapter of the study is the implementation strategy, and it goes into quite a lot of detail on each of these mobility strategies. It provides a kind of a cost figure, a rough cost figure. It provides information regarding, who would be a good lead agency to take this on, kind of the staff commitment, staff level, funding opportunities to fund each of these, and things like that. So there's a lot of detail in the last chapter of the study that will help provide the task force and the coordinating entity some direction in implementing these mobility strategies. And then here, there's just a series of them here. We are currently, and this is going on, it's gone on for about the last 3 or 4 weeks. during the study period, and a lot of the comments that we did receive up until about a week ago have been incorporated into the study. Our intention is to keep this survey instrument open. It's on the ATS project website, which we will maintain throughout the duration of the task force. And it's an opportunity for the public to give comments on the proposed implementation strategies. So again, we're gathering information. We're going to continue to do that. And one of the recommendations for the board in March is that any communication we get through this survey tool that we provide to the task force for them to consider as they're going forward and implementing these strategies. And I think that's all. I've got Richard and Naomi's from Nelson Nygaard's number on here, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions and or take any comments as well.
Thank you. And thank you for that report. If we could go back to not sharing the screen, and I see Mr. Hudson has his hand raised. Go ahead.
I should introduce John Cunningham from the county, who's been my partner in crime on this study.
Yes,
and give John an opportunity to let me stop share here.
Yeah. Dave, is it okay if John
Sure.
makes a comment first? And I want to thank John because I know this is
he's always here.
He has shepherded, and the county is very pleased that we have John and is helping us out. So go ahead, John. Are you growing a mustache?
I'm not growing a mustache.
For the last 5
Okay.
years. No.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't be checking in on a subordinate and how they look.
It's just a pandemic level.
Got it.
Care. Thank you. This is John Cunningham. I'm a planner in the Department of Conservation and Development with the county. Peter hit all the high points really. I don't have anything else to add. It's been quite a long road to get to this point, but we're pretty close. The Board of Supervisors is going to hear this item at their March 9th meeting this Tuesday coming up, and then after that, the CCTA board. So I'm looking forward to bringing it home. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Cunningham. Okay, Mr. Hudson, take it away.
I really echo what you just said, Karen. And John, Peter, I hope you guys really stay with us. How many times do we do these studies? We do surveys, and we've got all this energy in the. One small thing, and I wish we could learn how to do this since we're not passing out paper anymore. When you do the survey, always look at the first one that's on there because it always seems to get a great. Is there any way to shuffle them for each different person? I mean, we can do everything with software now, but if and is that first one include TNCs? Volunteer drivers or something like that. That would be TNCs also, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think how it's in there is same day trip, the same day trip. Because right now under a dial-a-ride service, you have to reserve the trip a day in advance.
Okay.
So that would basically be a TNCs. And we did try and find a way. We were really in a rush because we were run out of time and we needed to get that survey up. And there is ways that it can, automatically shuffle it, but the survey tool we were using couldn't do that. So
but you ask your electeds, Peter, they'll all tell you they want to be the first name on the ballot. But
yeah, I got
so
it.
It might be a little skewered, but I'll tell you, I went through these meetings with this, and there's every time, I don't want to say some negative was interjected, but every time there was some strong questioning or trying to take the direction a certain way that was going to run into a lot of problems because you've got a lot of different balls in the air on this one. It came back to center, and I think it stayed on schedule, and I'm ready to send this thing to the full board and see if they have any suggestions, because I think it's all been thought, it's all been brought up, unless I'm missing something other than the genius idea I just brought up.
Well, and I see Luella. Go ahead, please, Luella.
Would somebody tell me what a TNC is? And I as long as I've been on this flipping transportation.
TNC,
it stands for a transportation network company, and that's basically what Uber.
A very good question, Luella.
Thank you. They come up with, I just think I got them mailed, and then a new one shows up.
Luella, I'm going to give you a moment of honesty. I had to look it up the first 3 times.
Thank you. That's a moment of grace too. Thank you.
Any other commissioners have any questions for Mr. Engel?
I just want to be sure that I reemphasize what's already been emphasized, and that is I would like to end this with something that has enough traction so that we actually get working on solving the problem rather than revisiting it on a, every 5-year schedule. It would be great. And this is the team, I believe, that can accomplish that. And so I'm proud it's in our ballpark, and thank you very much for all the work you've done so far. I want to live to see the system develop. And I'm
Well,
getting old.
Yeah, as you all know, a lot of my energy has been on water issues, but we're sort of at a stalemate at the state. And so with my 2 years left in office, I plan to make this a profile and highlight issue. Our staff, both at CCTA and the county, have worked long and hard on this, and it deserves the prominence that it needs, as opposed to going back on the shelf. We're not going to let that happen.
Karen.
Well, and I know I'm not denigrating those previous works. There were reasons and what have you, but now is the time, and we're going to move forward with that. So with that, Ms. Reyes, do we have any public comment on this?
No public comment.
Okay. And if there's any further discussion, I'm not seeing any hands raised. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Oh, I don't think we got.
Yeah, what are we voting on?
Oh, yes.
Move it to
Pardon
the
me.
full board.
I thought Mr. Hudson made a motion
Yeah.
on it.
I did to move this to the full board, but it's,
I think it's Chris's turn to make a second.
Yes, let's let
I'll
Ms.
second
Kelly.
it.
Okay,
Thank you.
moved by
You gotta move
Hudson,
quick in this
seconded by
group.
Kelly. Thank you so very much. May we have a roll call vote? Thank you, Ms. Reyes, for that reminder.
Yes, Commissioner Hudson.
Aye.
Commissioner White.
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly.
Aye.
Vice Chair Haskew
Aye.
and Chair Mitchoff.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Sorry,
Motion passes. I always cut her off. Poor thing.
No
You're doing
worries.
an excellent job, and I'm sorry for doing that. All right, we correspondence and communications, that's on our agenda. I don't believe we have any. Commissioner and staff comments. I don't have any comments or reports. Do
I
any
do.
of my commissioners? Mr. Hudson?
I did too. First, because I said it quickly, Karen, I can't stress this enough. Thank you for taking this on. This is something that needs to be taken on. That single ride and across different districts is a major, major problem. The other thing is I went to my first Iron Horse Trail Committee meeting and I promised one of your staff members.
I heard, yes.
Okay, then I don't have to go into it. But I got to tell you, we got to do something about that committee. Elected or selected person needs to run the meeting, and you would have killed somebody at this meeting. Public comment is not moving it up to the first priority and the first thing that we talk about for 20 minutes when somebody brings up a subject. But in any case, it did make some sense. I don't know where you're going to go with it. I just told him I would bring it up to you. So,
Well, you and I can talk offline because it's one of my favorite,
oh yeah,
not the Iron Horse Trail. Some of the people.
yeah,
Sit on
yeah.
All
Thank you,
right.
Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Anyone else? Mr. Hale, anyone on you or your staff wish to make any comments?
No comments this evening, Chair.
All righty. Next time we see you will be St. Patrick's Day. So there is an expectation, other than that green plant in your background, that there be some green in that room.
I will make sure I meet your expectations.
Thank you so very, very much. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.